It's so good to be back. 2 weeks on the road. Feel like I'm at home. We just rolled in this afternoon, so I had enough time to shower and iron a shirt. And it's good to be here with all of you and you online. So we've been working our way through fundamentals of Tibetan Buddhism. And as we left off at the last talk a couple weeks ago, we had really built up to really understanding the benefits of compassion in our lives. How this can really transform not just the suffering we have in our lives, but really our whole perspective, and eliminate mental afflictions, jealousy, and so forth from arising. And we worked up to a point where the idea of taking a vow every morning to really start that this day I'm here, making a commitment to help rid suffering from all beings. Very beautifully written in here. We'll do the exact vow. But it was the idea that from this time forth until reaching the side of awakening, in order to ferry over the stranded, to release the bound, to revive the breathless, to bring to nirvana those not yet in nirvana, I generate the thought towards supreme, right, and full great awakening. And so for those of you without the full context, it's really saying, for anyone that's suffering, I am here for them. And that I'm going to use this life in a way to eliminate suffering, not just for myself, but for all beings, until we're all free, until we're all free of suffering. Sounds like a big task. And so today, the teaching is going to how do we wind that down to a real practical way of being while not losing the source, the power of such an attitude, and how that can really benefit us. So we kind of had talked about this idea of mental and emotional suffering, of feelings and thoughts and fears and jealousy and anxiety, sadness, despair, frustration, resentment. Is there any one of those that does not arise? I mean, really, in the sense of thinking about me first. Me first. When we really look at the source of these types of mental afflictions and how they arise, isn't it really something about it's not the way I want it to be? I want it to be like this. It should have been different. That's not right. That's not fair. I really wanted this. What about me? What about my family? And this construct of this self-cherishing in a way that actually creates suffering, not cherishing oneself in a way that identifies with all beings as a real sense of source of strength. It's one that actually eliminates our strength by thinking of me first. Me and mine creates you and yours. And now there's a lot of stress and worry and concern and struggle and competition and comparison. And we set up this really uncomfortable and painful way of starting to engage in the world in a constant comparison with me, with you, and somebody else, and what they have, and what they look like, and what they're doing, what I don't have, and what I used to have, and what I could have had, and what I used to be like, and what I'm like now, what I'd like to be like. That's pretty complicated. And you can see a source of a lot of dissatisfaction. I just learned this this last week, this idea of being an early adopter. Have you guys heard of that? It's a new thing. An early adopter. It's kind of cutting edge. Whatever new technology, whatever new thing, whatever new idea, new concept, you jump on it. An early adopter. And you get on it. So you're ahead of the curve, and that there's these ideas that you're on the cutting edge of new things as they arise. And it's like people strive for this. It's in the whole sort of coaching idea. And I thought, wow, What a source of dissatisfaction. You know, what a wheel. You know, I just got on board with this. This is great. And now I'm looking for the next. You know, and where's this peace? Where's this contentment? Where's this? And the source of early adopting is thinking about me in advantage to someone else. Try to find some peace and serenity there. See how that's going to work out. But it's this idea that when we're in it, we forget we're in it. You know, and we have that saying, you know, looking out for me and mine. And we find no peace in me and mine. We find a lot of peace and serenity in we and ours. Because that's how the world actually exists. This sort of fake facade of me and you, and separate from and independent of, not only creates suffering, it creates suffering fundamentally because it's not the way things are. So it's unsustainable. When we forget that, everything we have in our life is because of others. You know, what do we have on our own? What do I have on my own? You know, nothing. And I forget that it's to my benefit that you guys are happy and healthy and well. Because when you're happy, healthy, and well, this world's a better place. My kids get to come to a happy, healthy, well place. But when I start thinking about me and my kids getting above you and your kids, you can see this is unsustainable on so many levels, but automatically creates a struggle. And so the idea of bodhicitta is really to not just simply lessen the self-cherishing attitude that creates the suffering. It's to help us engage in the world more accurately as it actually exists, interdependently. Right? Interdependently. That whatever interaction, anything I have in the world, how many people are involved, how many animals are involved, how many conditions came and arose in my life so that I could be here today, healthy and well, being able to engage in life and make it meaningful. I mean, just for any one thing in front of me, let alone clothing I'm wearing, how many beings are involved for this pair of pants? How many so I could talk? How many for this lineage of teachings that have gone down through thousands of years? How many people dedicated their lives to years of practice so that we can hear some of the print that's on this text? And then I think I know something? It's not very clear. No. How many teachers we have in our life. How many people have helped us. Just getting away from the interdependent and the people we don't know who built the roads that we drove on, the cars that we drive, the books that we read, the lessons we've learned. I mean, that's just phenomenal, right? That's just the way things are. But just in our lives, how many times has someone extended themselves for us? We can't count that, can we? That we tangibly could see someone who extended themselves for us. It's probably beyond counting. And then we start thinking about all the people that helped us without us knowing. And how many people were just moved by something we did one day? We came from a retreat. And one of the men at the retreat, he's a massage therapist. Really gregarious, warm guy. Big guy. He's what, 6'5". Big guy. But warm, right? I'm afraid if he'd massage me, I'd be crushed. I don't know. But apparently he's gentle. But he shared a story. He shared a story with me personally of... or was it in the group? But he shared it that... You know, someone had made an appointment, come to him. And, you know, he set the appointment. And that person came. And you know, he does what he always does. Greeted them, you know, with love. And did the massage, tended to them, gave them care and concern. And then received a call from that person the next day. And said, you know, I really need to thank you. I owe you my life. I owe you my life. And he goes, oh, it was a massage. You know, like, He goes, what, you don't owe me anything. It was, it's what we do. She says, no, you don't understand. I had set up my schedule because you were going to be the last person I see that day. She was going to kill herself after that. So it was the final massage that set everything up and gone through that. And she said, the care that you gave me by the way you tended to me shifted everything and gave me a reason to live today. Incredible. I've heard many stories of that way. We don't know who we touch when we touch them. On so many levels, he got to know that day how valuable it is to treat another human being with care and concern simply because they're another human being and transform a life. Been around long enough to hear stories like that quite frequently and to know that it's not wasted. And then we think in our own lives, how many times has a kind word when we needed it got us through that day? And someone let us know, we're worth something. And we found a way to get through another day. This is a very interdependent thing that we call life. That's the tangible ones. We start wandering that out to that book we read at just that time. How many people were involved in that book and drove the truck and delivered the stuff? And how many people worked at the printing presses? And how many people, it just goes on. So when we start understanding how the world actually exists, it's an interdependent world. And when people are happy, healthy, and well, they're not breaking into your house. Because their resources are taken care of, they have their needs met. And when people are breaking into your house or car, why is that? Because they're lacking something, they're suffering. Things are not met. So when we approach this idea of great compassion for all beings, we want to come from a perspective that's based in reality, which is that we're interdependent. That we are a piece of this web of life, as is all others. And really to come up with it, to recognize the value of all beings. And so it's with this value that we approach our connection to all others. And boy, it's amazing how that eliminates suffering on its own. Then I'm not fighting to get the good parking spot. I'm actually thinking about allowing someone maybe who needed a little more than me get that parking spot. Or I get on a plane and it's like, yeah, I'll take the back seat. Or we let somebody else go on first because I'm strong enough, I can go sit in that. There's a peace and an ease that comes with that. So as we enter this, we start to see that compassion on its own eliminates a lot of the struggle, the competition, the comparison. I mean, when you think about mental afflictions, how many of them are directly related to such attitudes? Why am I angry, frustrated, resentful, jealous of yourself? Things aren't going the way I want. I'm not like I ought to be. Somebody else getting their way instead of me. It's a very me-centered source of suffering in life. So there's compassion that we have. The definition being to eliminate suffering. I have compassion. Compassion rises to eliminate suffering, self and others. And so we went through and we started seeing that all of these practices around compassion are designed to really cut through that self-cherishing attitude as our primary motivator. Doesn't mean that we're not concerned with our physical body, our families, our friends. It means that we're concerned with it in a healthy way that actually eliminates suffering rather than adds to it. Because a lot of things that we do to add to our, me, create suffering. That's what it does, right? The more I think about me, more suffering. One of the most fundamental things we can do to get out of our own stuff is start thinking about helping others. Or just reflecting upon others, period. There's a lot of others that are suffering in this world. There's a perspective that comes to being. And we find in life that so much of life is dependent upon what I'm paying attention to at a particular moment. If I start paying attention to reality, the interdependent nature, the way that we interact with each other, the incredible opportunities this life has to offer, and then engage in life in a way that has meaning and purpose, well, now we can see the seeds of bodhicitta rising in a sense that is really practical. If I go to work to get the good raise and the big thing and the sign on the plaque, and I don't guarantee there'll be a lot of suffering, but if I go to work to be of benefit to others and to be a good employee, to help my boss, to help my coworkers, to get a good product to my clients, the accolades may come or go. It doesn't matter. What matters is how I engage in my work, and that's sustainable. And often those workers are the ones with the plaque on the wall and the sign thing, because we're willing to be more focused on solving the problems than worrying about who gets the credit. Make sense? So we've come up to this point. That was just a lead into when we think about the idea, then what a meaningful way to wake up, to think today I'm here to help remove suffering from all beings. Pretty good job, you know. And it sounds kind of big, but in its application actually eliminates immediately an incredible amount of needless suffering, because I'm not out there to compete anymore. I'm out there to be helpful. Wow, what a difference, huh? Yeah. So here, we're in the next section, practices for developing this compassion. And so a quote from Shantideva: when both myself and others are similar in that we wish to be happy, what is so special about me? Why do I strive for my happiness alone? You know, my happiness alone. Why? And so this is really that approach that starts to recognize it's always rooted in our interdependence and the fallacy that I could be happy alone. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, does it? Alone, couldn't even drink this water. Alone, I wouldn't even have a cup to drink that water. Alone, not going to happen. And the more I focus on that, it's just suffering. So Shantideva is saying this not just in a sense of, am I being selfish? He's actually saying, no, you're being foolish. He's saying, it's not doable. It's not even rational. There's no foundation for that. He's not merely saying, you know, why should I be selfish? He's saying, you know, on this deeper level, why would you even try such a ridiculous path? And so here, these practices for developing compassion, they're plentiful in Tibetan Buddhism. All of Tibetan Buddhism, this is the driving engine, compassion. So lots of practices. No practitioner will be able to experience engaging bodhicitta right away. But you can develop it through training and familiarity. And that's something that, you know, we're going to just get into a bit, is there are many things that we can do today that we had no idea we could do. And we can only experience the world through what we know right now, right? So I don't know what it's like to, you know, I know I do a lot of things, but I don't know what it's like to be, you know, on the Tibetan plateau herding yaks. I have no idea. I just, you know, it's not in my realm of experience. There's a lot of things that are not in my realm of experience. And so I don't know of them. I don't know what it's like, and I don't know what I'm capable of. I don't know what skills I could learn that I don't even know exist, right? So So we only have the world through our level of existence. I only know my experience. I don't know what I'm capable of. And then if I go live somewhere, it's amazing what I could be capable of. There's a guy on the beach, on the pier, Santa Monica Pier, doing the old putting your name on a grain of rice. You guys have seen that before? Put your name on a grain of rice? Now to me, I'm thinking, that's impossible, right? How do you do that? But they do it. It's a pretty common thing. But I bet he didn't know he could do that before. And I don't think you can buy pre-bought grains of rice with names. John. Yeah, I got that one. The guy's writing on a grain of rice. It's like, wow, how do you do that? People, doing yoga and stuff, doing one-handed, handstands. Well, you can't do that until you learn how to do that. So when there's something like this idea of being that compassionate, often it seems like, well, that's impossible. Well, how do you know? There's a practice of familiarity, right? There's a practice of familiarity. You start doing something, who knows what can water and what can grow. So he's saying it's a practice. We need to start where we are. So he's saying our bodhicitta may not yet be spontaneous. This is from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It's still something we have to fabricate. Nevertheless, once we have embraced and begun to develop this extraordinary attitude, whatever positive actions we do, while not appearing any different, will bring greatly increased results. So he's saying that, right now I may not have full great compassion for all of you, but I can start acting as though I do. That I'm going to do my best. I'm going to start watering those seeds. And he says just watering that seed alone is going to transform everything that we do, even though it doesn't look different. And there's a big difference mentally when we think about how we can be helpful to others in very mundane ways. And imagine, like sometimes when I write something or I write, so every day I write happy birthday to people on Facebook. It's my little thing in the morning, who has a birthday. It worked out pretty well. I got a wife out of it. It's funny. It's one of the things she said. Oh, it was so nice. You wrote me a happy birthday thing. So you want to go out? That came a little bit later, but it planted a seed. So, but to not just say happy birthday, to sit there and think, wow, I really hope you have some joy today. I hope you have, and take a moment and then hit click. Rather than going through emotion. And to be more present with someone as you engage with them. I use a lot of the same ones over, giving a tip to the server, but really putting in the idea, may this really help you feed your children, may this help you get through school. That's a very different way of giving a tip. Paying your taxes, may this really help our school system. May this really help our local economy when we're buying things. If we bring that level of attention and intention to our lives, it shifts the energy of our relationship with people and the things that we're doing, and we start realizing how people buying things instead of thinking, man, look at their gaudy whatever thing that they bought and how extravagant. We start thinking, well, that tax is helping our local economy and doing things here. What a neat thing. It shifts when we shift that attitude. So even though we're not fully there yet, the idea that we do what we can, we bring it to mind as best we can. Energetically now, they've got this science that sort of notes that people sort of feel that presence within us. And you kind of know it when you're engaging with somebody who's looking you in the eye and there's some love in their heart. We feel it, and they're calm. We feel it. You can also feel it when there's a used car salesman trying to improve your life. Get what they want. We feel that too, that tension. So he's saying that you'd be amazed how much this shifts, even though it doesn't appear. It doesn't appear on the surface. Even when we have taken the Bodhicitta vow to assume responsibility for releasing all beings from suffering, we need to understand that at present, we do not have the power nor the ability to undertake such a task. So there's an aspiration, there's a building aspiration, there's an intention. And just watering that seeds, as we talked about, we're in this together all of a sudden, you know. And I'm already eliminating my mental afflictions. As I eliminate my mental afflictions, I'm better able to engage in life more meaningfully. As I do that, I'm also more able to truly listen to your needs and what's going on and find our common ground. I think that's the key, that common ground that we share. Although we may have the desire to work to benefit other sentient beings, we need to be realistic about where we are on the path. In order to help others, we need more than the desire to do so. In fact, the Dalai Lama says, altruistic thoughts can be an obsession and increase our anxiety. So we can get all wound up around this, and it happens all the time. I'm not good enough. My practice, oh, I had an angry thought at so-and-so. I'm such a bad person. I suck at this. And then I get all strung out because, heaven forbid, I had an angry thought or I got frustrated and I'm not perfect yet. And then it's not very helpful. And then we start comparing where we are today with the Dalai Lama. I'm going to lose. Just, it's not going to work. You know, or we start, you know, we think we should all be Mother Teresa. You know, and 2 minutes later, you know, we're flipping somebody off on the highway. And Mother Teresa wouldn't have done that. And then look at me, I suck at this. You know, and it's this cycle. We start beating ourselves up. So he's saying that's not the path here. We don't need a desire, and we don't need an unrealistic evaluation. The next sentence is great. What we need is a method. Now that makes sense. What we need is a method. How can we engage in life in ways that are based in reality, that understand the interdependence of this thing that we call life, that recognizes that my mental and emotional afflictions arise from a self-cherishing attitude that's not based in reality. There's a method for that. There's a way of interacting in the world that recognizes that interdependence that we share. And that how I experience you has a lot to do with how I'm feeling today. You've noticed that, right? When you're all happy and grateful and you've had a good day, suddenly those people used to annoy you. They're not annoying. You know, they're just fine. I'm a little insecure, a little scared, a little agitated, didn't get enough sleep. Man, these people are annoying. You know, that we've got this lens through which we interact with. So it says here, in Tibetan Buddhism, compassion can emerge spontaneously, but is usually born from an understanding of the interdependent and impermanent nature of reality. All right, so I was getting ahead of the book, yeah. So I mean, it's rooted there in that sort of interdependent way. And then things change. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we forget. When we're caught up in our emotions, we're caught up, we forget it's all going to change. This stress, this worry, this fear, this anxiety I'm having today, I may not, you know, a year from now, where's that going to be? Where's that going to be? And it's usually rooted in this thing is a good or bad thing that is happening or not happening the way I want it to happen. And we forget that things change. We forget that how many things in our life were just terrible and turned out to be the best thing ever. Worst day of my life turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. Losing the job led to this other job. The fact that Jill Miller broke up with me, I get to marry Laura. Wouldn't have happened otherwise. It hurt at the time. Her loss, man. Her loss. But at that time, doesn't it feel so real, you know? And we get caught up, this is it. And, you know, I'm going to be so lonely. How many times have you thought that? I'm going to be lonely, you know? And then it's Tuesday, you know? I taught middle school. Middle school was great because that's basically hormones with feet. And if you want to observe life, you know, just a day in the life of a middle school kid, it's amazing what can happen. We'd have these kids, right, crying, so-and-so broke up with me. It's tragic. We got to huddle with our friends, and they need a little time out. You know, and by lunchtime, they've got a whole new romance, and life's changed, and, you know, things have happened, and, you know, and just the life cycle of 24 hours is just phenomenal of what can happen, you know. And, but we do it on, our time frame just goes a week instead of the 24 hours sometimes, or a month. But if you notice in a day how many emotions come and go, if you were to try to jot them down, you wouldn't. It would be very hard. It would be very hard. But they're impermanent. They come and they're interdependent, and they're relative to my expectations, how I feel today, the things I want. But they're always coming around me and how I think it should be, as opposed to how it is and how can it be helpful, which is a totally different way of being. Totally different way of being. So, you know, and that's where it's born. And what he's saying here is, yeah, sometimes it's spontaneous, but it's usually work. It's work. It's not easy because our habits and our self-cherishing, our gravity is strong. So the more that we can water those seeds of reality, and that's where we started with, was the idea that, you know, how does this really work? It doesn't work independently, and it doesn't work me separate from you. It just doesn't work that way. It's based on the reality of things, the interdependent nature of things. And its impermanent nature. Things change. I change. What I think is important today is not what I thought was important 10 years ago. What's to make me think what I think is important today will be important 10 years from now? That's something we forget a lot. I start judging the future based on factoring how things may change, but I don't forget to factor I'm going to change. And what was really valuable for me today may be not so valuable 10 years from now, as I evolve and see things hopefully more clearly, I hope. That's the goal, right? So progressively we learn more and we see things differently. We gain a little wisdom, in certain things that are so important to us today may not be so important tomorrow. That we got worked up over. And it's a natural thing. I have time for this. So Tenzin Palmo, Venerable Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, you know, she talks about this being not something that is a forced, I need to let go of certain things. It's that as we start to engage in our practice, as we start to remember how things are and what's real important, what's meaningful, and how to engage in life, it's kind of like a little kid with their favorite teddy bear. We're a little kid, it's a favorite teddy bear, it's carried everywhere, it's mine, it's nice, it's cozy, it's comfortable. But you may have noticed as you got older, it's not that the teddy bear wasn't nice or anything, it just became less interesting. And we left it at home more. And we gained new interest in new things. Our practice is like that. You don't have to just rip it away from, here's the teddy bear and lock it up and I'm not like that anymore. It's more like, yeah, I've toted it around for a while. But gradually, as we engage in our lives in more thoughtful ways, our interests shift a little bit. And we leave the teddy bear at home. And we have new things to engage with. So there are a number of practices aimed at inspiring feelings of compassion. Geshe Gelsen, up here on my left, your right, Venerable Geshe Sultan Gelsen. So this is the rest part of this is from his teaching. He advises that we check in with ourselves 3 times a day, in the morning, around noon, and again before we go to bed. We should ask ourselves, have my actions been positive or negative, kind or unkind? Gradually, we learn to extend our compassionate actions from humans to animals to the smallest of insects and even the tiniest flea on the path to awakening. So it's a process. It's a process. We slowly extend that. And so when I was a young monk, I don't mean I was young and a monk, I mean I was a young monk. So I became a monk, and I'm leading this, my meditation on loving kindness. I'm just not good at this. Immediately what do? I'm fierce. I'm like, okay, visualize someone you really don't like. Like that's where I was starting. Yeah, it didn't go over well. Teachers will say you start with somebody you do like and you give them loving kindness and you help them. Then you extend gradually, right, to people that are neutral and then people that agitate you a bit. And, ultimately you wind up being able to sit in loving kindness with people that you really don't like very well. And it shifts. But it's a graduated developmental process. You don't start with the worst case scenario, as I found out. When we do it this way and we water these seeds, it grows. And it becomes a natural. So again, it's just like the teddy bear comes out less. It just comes out less. And you start recognizing. And that recognized shared value is, that deep understanding that others, are carrying with them their struggles, their sufferings, and their pain, their fear and their insecurity. So he says we should check in, and this is just, this is mindfulness. I should check in, if you do it around mealtime even, taking a moment. I like to take a moment before I eat and do my little prayers and think about what this is, this life, and how I can use this nourishment to hopefully nourish some others. And it's a good time to check in and see how have I been doing? How have I been doing? And then dinner time, same way. You can take a look at time and go, how have I been doing? I'm about to use this meal. Am I using this meal in ways that are helpful? And have I been for the last few hours? So it's a nice natural way of doing it, without artificially having to set something. That when you eat a meal and you think about, if it's meat or something like that, we're vegetarian, but, the Native Americans always had that idea that, something gave its life for me, so I can have this nourishment. So I want to honor that so I can really nourish others and use this nourishment to live healthy and well and be helpful and honor the lives that were involved. Vegetarian, same thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that went involved to harvesting and planting and doing all that stuff so that we can have this meal. And to use it in a way that's meaningful. And so it's a good check-in, because as we think about those who don't have a meal, and I do, as I think about all those responsible for providing me with a meal, both through their suffering and their joy. There's a lot of good that came in them providing this meal. They got paychecks or jobs or, whatever's going on there. That I am now taking this nourishment, and this again, interdependence and change. This food is going to become me. Right? At some point, it's no longer food, it's me. And what am I doing with this? And there would be no me without this food. And all these people that brought this food. How am I using this nourishment? So it's a good check-in time to go, am I using my nourishment well? Am I life meaningful? And what can I do to improve? But always with a gentle way on ourselves. Right? Starting where we are. And just cultivating the thought is incredible. Gradually, we learn to extend. Okay, so I got that. A practitioner may also make offerings of fresh flowers, water bowls at an altar like we have here every morning. while really setting their motivation to obtain enlightenment for the good of all beings. And then, this is a beautiful part of this book. As they say, there's many practices for cultivating bodhicitta, and usually, there's like 2 that they focus on. It goes right here to the heart of it. It says, the 8 verses of thought training by the Kadampa master, Langri Thongpa, present contemplations and meditations on compassion as follows. Like, this is where they start, is the 8 verses. So a lot of you are in our Sangha. We do it, all the time. It's part of the Chenrezig Sig sadhanas. It's just a really practical way of engaging in life that's based and grounded in the way life works. And it works with the real source of our mental afflictions, our mind, in ways that are really healthy. So these 8 verses. So we'll do a couple, apparently. We still have time. So every Saturday we do a Chenrezig Sig practice here, and we include these. So it's really nice. And often they say, I've always advised, and I've used in my life, to take one verse and have it be my contemplation for the day. So if you were to take any one verse, and we'll do a couple maybe, that's kind of, we bring it to mind in our day, and we try to see how that works. And then in our check-ins, we could say, how's that working? How's it working? And the beautiful thing about this is it's tangible and measurable. You can do these practices and check it out in a week, in a month, and in 6 months. Do I have more peace and contentment or less? Do I have more mental afflictions or less? I mean, it's very clear that the thing to not do it is to say, well, I'm going to do it for a day and check. It doesn't work quite that way. It's like, I'm going to try this for a little while, and then we can check. So our teachers will always inspire us, there's it's a 7-point mind training within that text. Kind of like the rays of the sun. But really, within all the 7-point mind train, it's a very distinct measurement. It says, check your practice. Are you getting better? Is there less mental affliction? Jetsuma Tenzin Palma always says, the way to guide your meditations after coming out of a cave for years is not how much bliss or non-dual nature you have. It's how are your mental afflictions? Are there more or less? Am I able to engage in life in more meaningful and productive ways with less mental afflictions? That's really what it's all about. And we can measure that. Do I still, less frustration, less anger, less of that? So, verse 1. Seeing others as the foundation of our practice. So the first verse, by thinking of all sentient beings as even better than a wish-granting gem for accomplishing the highest aim, may I always consider them precious. It's always interesting to read the different English translations of this, right? Yeah, by seeing all beings as more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Yeah. Holding them dear. Yeah. That's beautiful, isn't it? Not to put this down, but yeah. We have our, it's, as we get our preferences. But the gist of this verse is that seeing all sentient beings as better than a wish-granting gem. And this is such an important practice. What they're saying is that all other beings, any being I come in contact with, is more valuable than, so the wish-granting gem is a gem, it's sort of a mythical gem that, it's kind of like a genie's lamp that you rub, right? Yeah. It could grant any wish. You want to, whatever you need, it's there. You can have it. Rub, it's there. Whatever you want. And it says that others are more precious than that. And so, within Buddhism, they say, well, we'll just go, since Geshe Gelsen is much wiser than I'll ever be, probably. In the first verse, we reflect on the fact that our achievement of enlightenment completely depends upon the presence of other sentient beings. Geshe Gelsen explains that without sentient beings, there's no compassion. Without compassion, there's no bodhicitta. And without bodhicitta, there's no great awakening. Shantideva says that sentient beings are equal even to the Buddha in the way that they help us achieve the awakening of enlightenment. So what he's saying is, yeah, wish-granting gem can do a lot of things. It can't help you get enlightened. It cannot help you remove your mental afflictions. But others can. And all of you are the cause for my enlightenment. And there's no enlightenment here. I can't learn anything except in comparison, in relation to, and interaction with others. Like I said, I couldn't even drink my water, let alone develop compassion. All beings are that. So, what a nice contemplation for the day to see about how every being that you come in contact is the cause for your enlightenment, is helpful for your enlightenment. I often tell the story of when you're at the monastery, monks, believe it or not, it's shocking, I know. You put 1,500 guys in a monastery, and sometimes they have problems with each other. There's this wonderfully rich fantasy that thinks that all monks are just all peaceful and calm, loving and kind. Not thinking about who's doing what chores and what's going on here. And yeah, when can I get some more dessert? That we're human and stuff goes on. And so you go be angry or frustrated with somebody and, go to complain, to some old lama about what's unfair and how you've been mistreated and so-and-so's going on. And, these old lamas, they have different manifestations. Some are very kind and sweet and patient. Some are a bit wrathful. Most all have a sense of humor. So my experience was after someone got done complaining and they got done laughing at them. Sometimes they could listen attentively and caring, sometimes just laughing, I don't know. So I'd say something like, so let me get this straight. You're upset at the cause of your enlightenment, right? And you say, all right, never mind, I'm leaving. Because what those interactions do is they stir up, right, my mental afflictions, my things. And when you recognize that these beings are the cause of your enlightenment and they're collectively creating the environment we get to live in and allow me to engage in practice, you stop going to him to complain, basically. Yeah. And so many times it's fascinating because one of the real incredible gifts about having a spiritual teaching like that is so many questions don't need to be asked. You don't need to ask. I mean, you're like, and then, you'd frame it in your head and you go, well, he'd say this. You go, okay. Like, why bother? The answers are there. The problem isn't that we don't have our answers. The problem is we're not thinking about our answers. I'm so caught up in me and my problem that I'm not thinking about, the answers. This is true in therapy. Doing therapy, here's the classic therapy. Or even giving advice to a friend. They're complaining. They're in a situation. They're troubled. They're caught up in it. One of the most healthy things you could ask is, so what do you think would be a good thing to do about that? This is unfair and this is that. It's happening. Yeah, no, it really is. I can see that. It sucks. So what do you think would be a good way to respond? And now somebody's thinking about the solution. And often we're not. So one of the great gifts of a really wonderful guiding teacher is that if we've sat with them, if we've heard those teachings, if we have that connection, we don't even need to go see them. It's nice to know they're there, but we already have the answer. And so commonly, the answer is to just go back to very basic remembering. Here's a day that will never come again. I've got food, clothing, lukewarm water, a cup. What in the world would think I would be any happier any other way? You just come right back to basics. I've got a roof over my head, shelter, in this moment, where's my problem? In this moment, where's my problem? It's just so back to basics. My problem is in my mind, wanting things to be different than they are. And if I actually look at how they are, I can walk and talk, read and write, I can see, I've got clothing, I live in Carbondale, what am I paying attention to? Not all the stuff that's going my way. I'm paying attention to the one thing that ain't. And it is eclipsing everything else. Because I'm the self-centered center of the universe. And for some unbeknownst reason that has no rationale whatsoever, I actually think that even though there's 7 billion others out there, things ought to go the way I would like them to. It's really quite insane. And yet we do it all the time, don't we? Yeah, it's funny. And sad. And funny. And sad. And kind of funny. And so this is just reminding us that we're one among many, and that everybody's trying to find their way, and that all of you provide a reflection for this thing that I get to engage in called life. And you give me the potentials to cultivate the highest potentials that are within me, that I don't even know I have. I had no idea I had patience. I had no idea that I could actually, be loving and kind and thoughtful of others. But because of you, I get to learn that. So this verse is really just hammering that point that all others are the foundation for us to really cultivate those potentials. More precious than an iPhone. And I'm going to try to sneak this other one in. No, you know what? I'm going to pause there because there's a very special event that's going to start in a little bit. And I want to make sure we can get there for those who want to go. So I'll pause there. And just talk about this event, then Aaron will do announcements, we'll do a dedication, and we'll be out on time. We have down the hall here Father Tizo, who's going to give a talk on rainbow body and the resurrection. And so this is phenomenal. I've heard about this. I have not read the book. One of my teachers actually referenced him in teachings. Rainbow body is when someone passes, a great yogi like my teacher. I got to be present for that process. Their body their body dies, but they're still there. Body shrinks up a little bit. He had 2 big rainbows that came over the place, and I got to spend. I was there when all that happened. I was there with his body for the next 2 weeks. I was there during the cremation. I was there 2 weeks later. His body that's unembalmed has not decayed and smelled good, shrunken up, and just this incredible thing. So Father Tizo, who's Catholic, and thinking about resurrection and all these reporting of rainbow bodies, he went and interviewed and saw this phenomenon take place, not just with yogis, but people of different traditions as well, I believe. So he's giving a talk at 7 down the hall. So I'm interested to hear what he has to say and see what he thinks. I got this opportunity to experience with my teacher, but there's these other ones where they say, I think that these yogis actually go into light and all you see is fingernails and hair and stuff left. So that's 7, right? And I know Aaron had a couple of our way of compassion. Yeah. So a couple of announcements for upcoming, if you're interested in participating in the other things that the Dharma Center offers. We have Saturday coming up here, we do our Chenrei Sig practice. Starts at 8:30 in the morning, so to come and do a full practice, it includes those 8 verses that were discussed tonight, so good way to come and practice and be a part of that. Starts at 8:30. After that at 10 o'clock we have a book study. We're studying from the Dalai Lama's book, How to Practice. Another way that we can incorporate these things into our daily lives. There is an upcoming retreat on December 10th. That is a full day here in the Dharma Center from about 10 o'clock, I would believe, until about 4:30. Yeah, till about 4:30, something like that. 4:30. So the Lamrim is basically the full path of enlightenment. So I'm assuming we'll get there by the end of the day. Yeah. Well, 4:30 maybe. But another chance to come practice here. There'll be some meditation and then also lots of teachings to really absorb. Last but not least, this Dharma Center is here because we're all wanting it to be here. So a couple ways you can be involved is through practice. You come and join us on those practices. In order to receive teachings, one of the things that we do is to become good students. So that's one thing that you can come participate. The other thing is the Dharma is always offered free will donation basis, but the Dharma Center does need to have its needs met. So if you want to become a spiritual friend and are not already, you can check on the website, www.wodcd, the Way of Compassion Dharma Center. There's a link there that'll show you how to make a monthly donation if you could do so. If you need to discuss that with any one of us as well, we'll be here afterwards. So. All right, thank you, Ray. Thank you. So December 10th, the one day. All right, so we will take a little time to do a dedication. So at the start, we set our Bodhicitta motivation to really be here for the benefit of all beings. Now we're going to dedicate this collective merit and wisdom for all sentient beings. Let us dedicate the merit and wisdom accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes, both individually and collectively. We dedicate this for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free of suffering and find lasting happiness. And may we be able to use the merit and wisdom accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes to cultivate our highest potentials, to achieve the awakened mind, so we can truly benefit all beings and help end all suffering. All right. Right on time, huh? All right. Thank you all so much. Always a joy and an honor. Thank you for joining us online. Be well, and as always, try to stay out of trouble. Okay.